Thank you everybody for joining us. We didn't record the introduction, but we'll move on to get everything started here. So here's a quick agenda for what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to have some introductions from the Lakewise team. We're going to talk about what Lakewise is, the history of Lakewise on Lake St. Catherine. We'll talk about the process, what happens when you become involved in Lakewise. We'll talk about other initiatives that the Lake St. Catherine Conservation Fund, the Lake St. Catherine Association, and the Poultney-Meadowy Natural Resources Conservation District are doing this year on the lake. And then we'll have some web links that we can share with you guys, and also we'll take your questions. So let's start off with the introductions. And representing the Lake St. Catherine Conservation Fund tonight is Sue Ritchie, and she'll introduce the Conservation Fund folks who are working on the Lakewise team this year.
Okay, so we have Robin Barley. She's a board member for 3 years and part-time resident of Little Lake, which is her happy place. Tina Peterson is retired from GE Aviation since 2012, on the board since 2013. She lives in Little Lake and she's grown up here. And she's been coming to the lake since the 50s. And I am a retired Spanish teacher from Manchester and live here full time. And there we go.
And this is a little bit more about the Lake St. Catherine Conservation Fund.
Oh, okay. So we established it in 2009, and it was a nonprofit, and it's managed by, we're all volunteers, and there are directors, and the mission is to restore and preserve Little Lake to its accustomed uses in the past, which so many people have said it used to be like a clean lake without weeds. So the mission is to restore it and to get it back to its natural beauty and ecology. We count on the generosity of members and residents of the town of Wells to fund the lake management programs. And we work closely with you, Jeremy, with your organization and the Vermont DEC to try to find programs that will help to get the lake and the health of the lake back.
So Martha, you can introduce us.
Oh, thank you. So I'd like to meet my colleague, Jeremy Jones, who is a full-time resident here at the lake. And I must say he's kind of our secret weapon at the association, because anytime that we need to do communications, or I will say analyses, he's always there to make the association look great. And you learned how to water ski on Little Lake in the early 80s. Well, that I didn't know, Jeremy. So, and I am a proud product of Granville. Grew up on Cones Point and then worked for 50 years to try to find a way to paddle myself back. Now reside, please stop and say hello to me at Camp Evergreen on Westlake Road, which is named for 3 generations of my family's slate company. This one is mine as well, right, Jer? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I just wanted to let you know that the association, works hard in your behalf, not just during these summer months, but, I think I'm more of worth to you in the off season in doing the grant securing and reporting on grants that we have the opportunity to earn, and over the years now are increasingly turned to since we've developed a reputation of being able to deliver on them. I will say that our mission is pretty obvious, but we have, analyzed it recently to say that our interventions have tended to be in water body, that is within the proper basin of the lake. And that, basically runs the gamut from the following product lines, milfoil control, which is sort of this balanced approach that we've tried to take of herbicide application and the diver assisted suction harvesting. Milfoil prevention, which is the greeter program at the boat launch, but it's also the expansion of that for extra hours for fishing tournaments for the 4th of July week, and now a new partnership of a second site at the state park. Third would be our water quality measurement, and later on we'll kind of talk about the increasing importance.
And cooking and listening to Lake St. Catherine Association.
We will kind of discuss a little more fully that our future funding is going to be driven off our ability to drive down phosphorus concentration in the lake. And so water quality measurement and management will take on increasing importance. Of course, our work on boating safety. But I think what we've learned over time is that as we do all of these pieces, that we have a greater awareness now of what individual homeowners can do to help leverage all of the good work that we're trying to do. And that's the purpose of tonight's call.
Hillary?
I'm Hillary Solomon with the Poultney Meadowy Natural Resources Conservation District. I started working for the Conservation District back in 2004. I was actually the watershed coordinator for the bi-state Poultney and Meadowy watersheds in Vermont and New York. And then in 2014, I started as district manager. And Sadie Brown will be helping with this project as well. She's been working here for a couple of years, and she's been doing a lot of the tree planting related projects, rain gardens, design work. She's very artistic. And she's the nursery manager at the Champlain Valley Native Plant Restoration Nursery, which we'll mention a little bit later. It's kind of a special and slightly enigmatic nursery. So the conservation district started after the Dust Bowl era, and there are conservation districts across the country. The idea is that it was sort of information sharing between farmers in the beginning. We have a local board of supervisors. We're quasi-state government, so we don't actually fit very well into any of the more recognized state government entities like DEC or ANR. We're definitely see ourselves as being locally led and sort of advocating on behalf of landowners, trying to find solutions to water quality problems from more of a local perspective. Right now, we are working a lot on stormwater projects, forest lands projects, and we work with quite a few of the farms in the area. We love to participate in any kind of research and monitoring that's going on, and we have been collecting water quality samples from various tributaries and rivers in the area since 2003.
Okay, so let's tell you a little bit about what Lakewise is. So the Lakewise program was developed by Vermont Lakes and Ponds program to recognize outstanding efforts by homeowners who live along the lakeshore. So the idea of the program was to get folks involved with their property and how it impacts the lake, and actually award folks that do the right things, that follow the best management practices for the interface of their property to the lake. And the program was also developed to provide technical assistance for landowners to incorporate those lake-friendly practices to their properties, and encourages owners to voluntarily implement them. And then the Lakes and Catherine Association got the grant this year and last year from the Lake Champlain Basin program, where we can actually help homeowners with some of these interventions and actually pay for them and help fund them. So you may have seen a few properties if you've driven around the lake recently with this Lakewise Award displayed on their property. This is, if you meet the criteria for Lakewise, you get this award and can display it at your property. And I've already talked about some of this, but the idea is to have folks see those awards around the lake when they're driving around, and see it and ask, oh, I wonder what that is, and try to spread it around to other properties, and have neighbors talk to neighbors about the good things that they're doing on their property to make it better for the lake. Uh, so Hillary will talk more about this, about what the process is in a little bit. But the 4 categories that are looked at when they come to your property is they look at the driveway and the parking area, the structure, the recreation area, and the shoreline area. And all of these categories are scored on their ability to slow rainwater and snow melt and things like that from infiltrating to infiltrate the stormwater. So when we have a big rain event where the water is rushing across properties around the lake, the water can pick up pollutants, phosphorus, nitrogen, and bring it into the lake. And we're trying to slow that down and have the surrounding areas infiltrate that water so it doesn't go directly into the lake. So here's a brief history of Lakewise on Lake St. Catherine. I think Martha's going to take this back over, talk about the great success we had when we kicked it off, and then especially last year.
Great, thank you. Oh, well, first of all, I'm just, so grateful that you all have expressed an interest to participate in this. I did want to reassure you that you are standing on the shoulders of others who also wanted to do their part. I think our job is to empower and incentivize homeowners to be stewards in their own right. So these are the Binghams, and they were our first award winner. And as Jer said, there were 11 more properties that were earned this award last year. And, sometimes it takes a couple of years to get to this level of getting an award, but it's not, to me, when I first started this, getting the award was sort of not the goal. I mean, I am somewhat competitive by nature, and it certainly was something that I wanted in my property. But what really intrigued me was what I learned, how ignorant I was about what was happening as across our property, and things that would make the most difference in changing that. So I didn't want you to think as well that we are asking our members who live around the lake to do something that the boards were not willing to do themselves. And so over this last year and into this year, the Crandalls, you may know, on the west west part of Main Lake, have several properties, and they have been very instrumental in teaching us about the before and after impact of what they've done there. The Lairds, who are neighbors of ours, have undergone this, as well as the Liberators. And I think the next slide may have some pictures of some of our award winners. It was a real item of pride. And I think that, whereas when we first moved here, we thought that having green grass down to the lake was sort of what you should do. We've now learned that having a 3-foot buffer makes a huge difference in catching stuff before it actually ends up in the water body. And and it kind of intrigued us about what will make the most difference in reducing excess nutrients and sedimentation. And it has everything to do with the gutters on the house and the way that the culverts go across your property. But, in our case, we have quite a slope across West Lake Road. And so, as Jer said, in these storm events in the spring, but actually during the course of the year, we tried to anticipate how we could catch it as it went. So we do have, yes, buffers down by the lake shore. We also have a rain garden by our driveway, and we're constantly looking at the, impervious surfaces and what we can do to try to redirect water also before it goes into the lake. And we're wrapping a garden around the south side of our house. I wanted to also just kind of mention, as we move now to Little Lake, that those ambassadors who have been in this program for the last 2 years have offered to do 2 things on your behalf. One is to have tours of their property if you'd like, so that you can kind of see what worked for them and what they did. And secondly, to have a buddy system that if you wanted to have someone that you could just pick up the phone and talk to, that they're more than willing to help.
You want to take this one, Martha?
Sure. So this is, I'm really excited the fact that, this is the second year in a row that we received a grant from the Lake Champlain Basin Program. And that is a large grant program that, the Lake Champlain Basin is massive. And so we wanted Little Lake St. Catherine to get its fair share. There's certainly, from the federal EPA on down, an interest in reducing total maximum phosphorus load in Lake Champlain. So to get their attention, we needed to have a good, rigorous program that would attract them and, have performance measures that where we could objectively measure, how well we did. And so we've had now some good luck, I think, in the Big Lake. And we wanted to kind of have a focus this year to see the degree of impact that can be made on the Little Lake. And I'm so impressed with, Sue and Robin and Tina and their leadership in this, because they're your neighbors and you trust them, and this has expanded in a way that I think we could not have anticipated. So I want you to know that, for the plantings and things of that nature, that there's no investment on your part. I found in our experience that as, we were so happy to have, the work done so that we could start the process. And then we kind of came up with more and more ideas about what we might do. So I don't think that this is a one-year kind of a venture, but really to get everyone started in thinking, and then over time, to have the resource of someone like Hillary and Sadie to be able to advise you on things to do for the long run. So that's part of our grant, is to have an outreach and education program to property owners. We've been working, over these last 6 months to have blogs and the website articles and mass communications and the spring newsletter and things of that nature. But tonight, we just wanted to let you, be here in the flesh with us and to ask every question that you might possibly have, after we do this brief presentation.
Okay, so this is the Lakewise process. This is going to be when the Lakewise team comes to visit you at your property, and Hillary will talk about this.
All right, so we are in the middle of tree planting right now, so we're pretty hectic, but we have our summer staff on board now, and they are excited to start doing these assessments. So we will try, we need to bring them out and train our new folks. So we'll contact somebody off the list and see if we can do that, come out to their site and do a training. And then we will start to fit people in probably the very last few days of May, and then into June, we'll do the bulk of the assessments. So we will contact you, and I'm always happy if you haven't heard from us and you're curious and you wonder when your appointment's going to be, please reach out to us. We are just so busy and we work in multiple spaces. And so sometimes, it's really helpful to get a reminder. But we'll come out, and if you want to be there, we're happy to make an appointment at a time when you're available to meet, so we can go over the assessment with you. If you're not there and we just want to get a few done in a day, we're happy to do that. And then we send follow-up documentation, which includes lots of pictures, and it'll include every possible project or opportunity for some type of water infiltration that we find. So these are pretty detailed. And then I think I'm ready for the next slide, actually. If you want to sign up for to complete one of the projects, one or more of the projects from the sheet or from our in-person meeting, then we talk about which of those projects, how you'd like to see it done. We'll provide you with a project plan so that you can see if it's a buffer planting, we would list out all the plant material that we plan to use. You can ask questions about the specific plants and how tall they get, or what kind of berries they have, if wildlife likes them, that type of thing. If they're good for pollinators. We have a couple of, we usually do a couple of larger projects like infiltration steps, or we haven't done this yet, but we have talked to some folks about maybe trying to do some pathway improvements. So we're looking forward to maybe trying that someday. And then we did a culvert outfall stabilization last year that turned out really nicely and had some help from an engineer who helped us size material. So we do have those, resources we can draw on as well to help with things we aren't quite as familiar with. But these are the list of things that we feel fairly comfortable offering, and we'll just go through the list with the homeowners and see what they're interested in. Yeah, I think that's it for this slide. And then for folks that meet the Lakewise criteria, so a lot of times people don't meet it in the beginning. It's fairly strict criteria. You have to pass you have to get a majority of points in all the four sections, those four sections that Jeremy mentioned. So a lot of times we come up after the assessment, we come up with sort of a plan to move forward. And so we can figure out which projects we should implement in order to get the award or to get the scores sort of in the area that would allow an award. So we work with the homeowners on that. Some, for whatever reason, might be in a sort of situation where it would be challenging to meet the award, and we'll just work with you sort of one-on-one to do everything we can sort of within the bounds of the property itself. And so, yeah, so that's sort of how the process goes. I think last year we handed out awards on Labor Day weekend, and it sounds like we're thinking about doing that again. Jeremy, we're going to do a boat tour again? That was pretty fun.
Yeah, we can get on the boat and head out for deliver the awards like we did last year. That was great.
So last year, because of COVID, we actually went dock to dock and just met the, sort of individuals who received the awards. But it was so much fun that it sounds like we get to do that again this year. Except maybe you can have guests if you want this year.
So while we've got everybody here, we want to quickly just give you some other lake initiatives that we're working on this year. So for the Lake St. Catherine Association, Martha touched on this. These are some of the bad things that we want to keep out of Lake St. Catherine that are in nearby lakes. Zebra mussels, spiny water flea, water chestnut, Asian clams, all these things you see here. Our greeters are at the boat launch in Wells, and will also be at the state park checking boats as they enter to make sure that they don't have these things, and also educate boaters about them, so we can keep these from hitchhiking from one lake to another and keep them out of Lake St. Catherine. So this is a really important program. As Martha also mentioned, we make sure that we do our water quality testing every year. We're hoping to expand that, and we'll talk about that. Lake safety, very soon we'll be putting out all the markers, all the buoys to keep people safe and to keep people not speeding through the channel, right, Sue? One thing that we're very excited about this year is the watershed action plan. Martha has put in a ton, and Hillary and her team have put in a huge amount of work into this plan to get a very substantial grant for Lake St. Catherine to put together a long-term plan to bring all of our individual programs together into an overarching strategy to plan ahead for what's coming with climate change and other things that the lake will be dealing with, and a plan to deal with them. So we're hoping to hear about that very soon. I think they said in June. So that'll be big news if we can announce that we got that grant. So stay tuned on that.
Jared, do you mind if can I add just a moment?
Yeah, please.
Here? So I just wanted everyone to know that, a lake like ours, so what are we, like fourth largest lake in Vermont? We are competing with, Lake Champlain and larger lakes. But the truth is that because of all these things that we've been working hard on, it is true that we're receiving a level of credibility that has been, very inspiring to us. We made it through the first wave of the grant applications for this watershed action plan. It's forced us to get out of our comfort zone and think about every possible thing that affects the watershed for the long haul. So, whereas we've been measuring water quality in the middle of the lake, according to all the DEC templates, we're going to be, paying a lot of attention to every nook and cranny, a plan for every bay. And, whereas we've been looking at what has happened in the lake itself, now we're going to move upstream to the tributaries, and whether it's Endless Brook or other streams that come into the lake, is what do they bring and how do they bring it in? And is there work that can be done upstream that will give us a better chance of success in the long run? Hillary has really helped our lake by having these stormwater projects sprinkled around, and they may affect things like culverts and water that goes across the road, say that from Lake Lucidian across the road down across and into the Little Lake. It also affects, is involved with the watershed action plan is involved in looking at road practices and maintenance practices and zoning rules. And so we really are kind of taking a much broader view for a long-term strategic plan. So we'll keep our fingers crossed, but we've learned a ton in the process. And I think we'll, just keep chipping away at every possible thing we can do.
And then the last thing, real quick, we just announced our milfoil control plan that was on our website yesterday. We've got our dash team areas are highlighted in green, and our spot treatments in the big lake are highlighted in red. This is the year one of the joint venture with the Conservation Fund to treat Little Lake for milfoil in the M-shaped pattern that you'll see, which will take care of the shorelines and then start in the middle. And then this will be year one of a 3-year plan for that. So we'll also have a lot more information about that, how everybody around the lake, including Big Lake down to Little Lake, from Lily Pond down, what you can do to help make that program a success this year. So Sue, you want to talk about what the Conservation Fund is doing this year? Oh, you're on mute.
Okay, so once the, what is it, Procelicor is put in, then when that is put in, we will be deploying mechanical harvesting to just try to keep the navigation channels open. Because what happens as we're hoping, so much that the chemicals will allow the weeds to go away. But if they don't, we're going to have to keep harvesting, because otherwise you cannot even in a kayak, it's really hard to get down there. We're going to be dredging shoreline areas as permitted by the Vermont DEC. We're going to keep track of what is the health of the lake. Are we going to be having algae spurs and growth? So we just really want to look at what is the effect of this year, and we're hoping it's going to be amazing. I really hope. We're going to test new approaches. We're still going to be talking to DEC about aeration, and that was successful, but the DEC, anyway, I won't talk about that. I'll just say that with aeration and other things that will help to get rid of this as well, perhaps we can have success. Don't know, but we're hoping this year at least we have a lot of success with Procelicor. And we're going to be working with environmental experts to identify and look at best practices.
And Hillary for Pulliametawi.
Well, we are continuing our Lake Education and Action Program, and it's going to be so this one, probably some of you have had some experience with. That program's been around for many years. We have high school interns come and work with us, and it's very educational for them. And then the idea is that they sort of interact with homeowners. And so it's sort of this cross-pollination of ideas between these youngsters who are interested in water quality and homeowners who live along the lake. So we'll have a LEAP team for probably the month of July. So you'll see some high schoolers out and about with informational packets, or they might come plant on your property as part of the Lakewise program. So we've been able to kind of integrate these two programs together. We get some funding from Lake Champlain Sea Grant to run the LEAP program. And they're really, really supportive of this project, and also this Lakewise assessment to sort of LEAP planting, which they're trying to emulate in other parts of the state. So this program has been well received across the state of Vermont, what you guys are doing here. We are collecting water quality samples this summer. There was no monitoring last year because of COVID. The lab didn't want people in and out, but we're collecting samples this year, and we are monitoring a couple of tributaries that flow into Lake St. Catherine. So once we get the data, we've just had our second sample event, and we captured one storm event about 2 weeks ago. So we get data, it takes a while to get the data back, but as soon as we get our data back for the summer, it would be good to have, maybe we can put on a presentation or something about the data that we collected. So we are continuing work on our stormwater projects. So you should see those, the next batch of them begin to be installed, including one at the boat launch, which will be kind of exciting. So that would be a fun one for people to visit us at while it's going in, since it's so public. The stormwater master plan is finishing up. So we have 50 or 60 projects now for the whole Pulteney River watershed, sort of excluding the areas that have already been done. So we'll be visiting towns and sharing projects for the towns, you know, West Haven and Fairhaven and Middletown Springs, and the towns that haven't already been done by their own stormwater master plan. So driveways are something that we've been concerned about. There are a lot of miles of driveways in these watersheds, especially the watersheds like Lake St. Catharines. It has some sort of steep headwater areas, and there's no technical support for anybody who wants to make improvements on their driveway. There's nobody to ask. There's no funding for improvements. So that's something we've been concerned about, and we are going to work with a couple of consultants and an excavator operator and sort of provide some hands-on driveway, stormwater infiltration training. It's going to be down in Danby, but I feel like people around the lake would be interested because we know that there are some steep driveways around the lake. So we will publicize that to you guys as well, just in case you want to make the trip down to Danby and see us install sort of infiltration areas alongside driveways that are easy to maintain, mow, etc. Try to kind of blend them into the landscape. Thanks, Jeremy.
I think Sadie's going to take this one.
Yeah, so the Champlain Valley Native Plant Restoration Nursery, we're located in Pulteney, Vermont, and we grow all native plants. And then the district uses them in restoration plantings and then in smaller projects like what was being implemented through Lakewise. So a lot of the plants that will be put on your property will actually come from the nursery. And then we also offer these plants to the public to purchase as well. And as Hillary said, we're pretty busy right now, but you are welcome to contact me and we can make an appointment to come visit the nursery and look around, see all the plants for sale. We have lots of trees, shrubs, and a variety of flowering perennials as well, all native species. So just let me know. And then in addition to the Lakewise and LEAP projects, the district and nursery have received funding to work with landowners in the Catherine Court neighborhood on wells, and we're trying to implement some rain gardens and vegetative swales there. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with that area, it's fairly flat, and then it can accumulate water during storm events, which then carries sediment and nutrients to the nearby stream. So adding these practices in will help to infiltrate the water in place and keep our waterways cleaner right there. So if you live in that neighborhood or know someone who does and might be interested, you can contact me and also be watching as we put out more information for that project. And then in addition to growing plants, the nursery also holds volunteer and educational events, both for local students and then also for the public. So this summer we'll be implementing example rain and pollinator gardens at the nursery. And so we'll be looking for participants to both help with planting as well as learn about each species and their sort of function or role within the garden. So that might be nice as you're trying to implement these own projects on your property or learning about them through one of these programs. And then we also have general volunteer days during the growing season where you can play with plants and get your hands dirty. So keep an eye out for those as well. They should be fun. I hope to see you there.
Thanks, Sadie. So we're at the end of the presentation here. So we just want to share a few links with you. These are some information that you can learn about Lakewise on our website, also about water and shoreline protection. You can learn about the Stormwater Master Plan, which Hillary was speaking about. We talked about the milfoil control program that we're doing this year. We had a joint fundraiser, or we have a joint fundraiser going on with the Conservation Fund. If you'd like to contribute to that or learn more about our plans for the Little Lake, you can view that link right there. And there's a couple of publications that we have on our website. I put short links right there so you could quickly find those. Your Lake and You and Sharing the Edge are really good publications that have lots of tips and will help you learn more about your property and how it interfaces with the lake. And then we've got the Pulte Medowee link for their website and the Conservation Fund's website listed there as well. So right now we'd like to open it up, and if anybody wants to turn on their mic or their camera and ask any questions about anything we talked about, please go ahead.
So Jeremy, this is Martha. As people are beginning to kind of formulate their questions, I just wanted to provide just a moment between this page and their questions. And that is, you know, the one thing we've learned to differentiate within the lake are native species versus invasive species. And that's not always clear on individual properties. And I think we want people to know that we're a resource to them. I know you've been around in your kayak, you know, looking to see is someone's concern about seeing not necessarily lily pads, but other native species when they thought maybe that it was milfoil and it wasn't being captured. So I think to know the difference and to reach out to us when there's a question in their mind. And Hillary and Sadie can provide that same role for plants on the shoreline. That is, you know, it's one thing that we learned in our property assessment, that there's native plants on the shoreline and there's invasive plants on the shoreline, and to understand the difference between the two. So I'm just going to offer them up to be a resource in that regard as well.
Yeah, so if anybody has any questions, please go ahead and jump in.
Hi, I'm Joan. I live on the channel, and our family's been there since the 50s. So I just wanted to ask about the aeration. That's over with. The state didn't provide the funding for that.
Sue, do you want to talk about that? That's
yes, I can answer that question. So Joan, they have not, the DEC does not believe that that has been effective. It's still going to be debated. But so for now, the aerators are turned off, and we're just going to hopefully go with Priscilla and we're just going to try to do what we can with all the things that were on the slide that I mentioned, with cutting up the weeds. And anyway, I don't know if that helps. It probably doesn't. We're really stuck right now, but hopefully with the Priscilla core, that will make a big difference. And that's what we're hoping at this point as a 3-year program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Joan.
Hi, this is Lisa Message. I also live on the channel, and I'm kind of curious. I see a lot of my neighbors using long rakes to pull up weeds. Is that very effective? Should we do that, or is it they're just wasting time? What is your feeling on that?
Well, I know I live over on Cones Point, and every year I go out, and it is permitted for you to do so. You can clean up your shoreline. You can clean up your swimming area near your float. As long as you're not using some kind of mechanical device, which would require a permit. Lake rakes are effective to pull up weeds and muck from the lake shore. If you do this, especially if milfoil is involved, you want to be very careful that you don't fragment the milfoil. You get all the milfoil out if you can before you rake. If you could pull it out by the root, that might not be possible where you are. But you don't want it to fragment, because if it fragments and then floats away, it can sink and then create a new weed. If it's regular weeds, you don't have to worry about that as much, but you can use rakes or other non-mechanical devices to help you clean up your area. And if anybody that's on the call has any good recommendations or tips or suggestions, please offer those up.
Yeah, we rake all the time just to keep the swimming area clean, and putting the weeds in a pile, they mulch. And I found that the mulch becomes very good planting soil for flowers.
Yep. And what you don't want to do is leave the wheat. Don't leave what you pull up to float away in the lake. Get it out of the lake. If you don't want to use it as mulch, let it just dry on shore. And then you can bring it to the transfer station just like you would any other lawn cuttings or lawn waste. See some mics turning on and off. So if anybody's got another question, please go ahead.
I have a question about runoff from Ivy Lane onto Ferncliff Road, the stormwater runoff. And I don't know if Hillary has an answer as if they're going to do anything about that. My other question is, I did win a Waterwise Award last year, but it was too late to do anything. So what are they doing to follow up with those owners that didn't get anything planted?
Yeah, Linda, we can put you on the list this year for a planting. And we'll visit your site again, because as I recall, that was a pretty steep area that you were looking at adding some material to. So we'll need to make a pretty solid plan about how we want to work in that space.
I have a question. If we're interested in getting our property evaluated with the Lakewise program, how do we go about that, making an appointment?
Joan, if you could send us an email at info@lakestcatherine.org.
Okay.
We'll add you to the list.
Okay.
So just send us your address. And
I think I may have done that, but I'll do it again, and I'll let you know when we're going to be there.
okay, yeah, if you had already emailed, you're definitely already on the list, but if you haven't, please do so.
And if you haven't, let us
Okay.
know when you're going to be there. That would be helpful too.
Okay, thank you. I would imagine you're probably not going to be doing it Memorial Day weekend. Probably you're not going to do the weekends.
We might hope not to. Sometimes we do.
During
If
the
that's,
week, you're more during the week, which you could go there when we're not there during the week. That's fine.
we're more during the week, but we do work, the weekends when we need to.
Okay, well,
Our families
could
don't
always
love
go
it,
there
but
no, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. You need time off.
Okay, thanks, Joan and Linda. Any other questions?
I just wanted to add, this is Sue, to Joan, that you don't have to be there as a property owner for them to come and look and then give you a report of what you need to do. You might want to follow up afterwards. So if you're not here, I'm also in the channel full time. I could also kind of help you out. So I just want
Okay.
to offer that to you.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll talk on Memorial Day weekend. Thank you.
I'm here.
Okay, any other questions?
Jeremy, I have a question. So the other questions that I had have already been answered, but this one is regarding the infiltration steps. We do have concrete slab pathway and steps, which is obviously impervious. So we're looking, I'm kind of interested in how much does the Lakewise program kind of contribute or assist with maybe, making that change.
But last year we installed several sets of steps, and the Lakewise, or sort of Lakewise LEAP combo, was paid for the whole installation. We did that work ourselves. And usually if we do an assessment and say somebody has 5 projects that they want to do, it may be that there's a sort of dollar amount cap, and then anything over that, the homeowner, if they want to move forward with those other pieces, would pay for, or, you know, we might be able to do it in 2 years. So we just, we do our best to pay for as much as we can. It just depends on how many people are interested in projects and how expensive those projects are.
And would that include demolition of the existing steps, or is that after a certain amount of site preparation?
Well, we have shovels. So if it's something that could be removed with a shovel and you know, one of us.
I feel like it's more
we
like
could do that.
jackhammers. Jackhammers might be involved. But,
Yeah, and we can also work together with a contractor. So if you had a contractor, that would be your expense, but we could work with them and help provide some of the labor, so that might decrease that expense, and then do the planting and installation afterward.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And I think it was a few years ago. Was I the guinea pig, Hillary?
You were the guinea pig for sure.
We had
That was our training.
we had when we purchased our property back in 2015, the previous owner had grass all the way down. So even though we haven't done Lakewise yet because we're continuing to do some renovation, the Leap kids came in, and Hillary, and we installed a buffer with some nice plantings. And then the year after that, or a couple of years after that, we had a little area that would be great for a step down into the lake. And they excavated that and put the infiltration steps in. And I think if you go to our website and look, do a search on our blog, you can see some pictures of the steps that ended up being put in. And right in the middle of it, a gigantic rock that nobody saw was right in the middle of the steps, and they were actually able to make it one of the steps. So it looked pretty cool. They did a great job. Any other questions? Okay, I'll show a couple quick slides here at the end to say thank you to everybody. If you're looking to help the lake, help your property, these are some things that you can do. As I think I told Joan, if you want to sign up for Lakewise, please send us an email if you're not already on the list. We've got that 3-year program in the Little Lake to help with milfoil control. We've already raised $17,000 as part of that. So that covers year 1 and part of year 2. We're going to continue to fundraise to help fund that project. Become members of the association and become members of the Conservation Fund to help support the work that we're doing. And we'll have a lot more on this as we roll out the milfoil control program this year, but some things you can do just to keep in your mind right now. If you've got milfoil near you, pull it out of the lake, get it by the roots, get it out of the lake. If you see floaters going by, scoop them out. Sometimes they're just little fragments. Sometimes they're big mats that float by. If you're capable, get them out of the lake. If they can't float away and go somewhere else, they won't make new plants. And like I said earlier, just get it out of the lake and dispose of it like you would your yard waste. So we'll have a lot more info on that in the coming weeks. So just want to ask one more time if we've got any last questions before we go. If anybody's brave enough to turn on their camera and ask a question.
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. Just wanted to say thank you.
Yes.
My
We're
wife and I are excited to be taking this step and see where it goes. So, but we also are pretty familiar with the volunteer work, and we know what it takes. So thank you for doing it. Look forward to
Yes, thank you very much.
Appreciate that. Okay, so it looks like that might be it. Thank you very much for all joining us. We'll provide the recording. So if you know a neighbor that might be interested, you'll have a link that you could send them and say, hey, I learned about Lakewise, and you can send them this link. So we'll try to get this up by the end of the weekend, and we'll send you the link so you can share it. And we appreciate your time tonight. Thank you very much. And thank you to Conservation Fund folks and Portland Meadowy for joining us and getting out the information. Thank you.
Thanks to you, Jeremy.
Thank you,
Have a
Jeremy.
great night, everybody.
Have a good
Good
night.
night, everyone.
Great, thank you.
Yay. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you soon.
Okay.